Okay, it's 8 o'clock, so why don't we get started? First item on the agenda is the presentation of schematic designs from Taisu Kim. With us today is Richard Sipic, Taisu Kim, and Leslie Saylor. You should all be familiar with these fine gentlemen. So I'll turn it over to Richard.
Great. Thanks very much. Well, this morning we have two options that we would like to present to you. We're calling these options 3 and 4. They may seem a little familiar, but they are different. And so we'll go through the plans and the site plan to explain the details of them. But first I want to remind you of where we left off. This is where we left off. We created this footprint on the site, which represents the bounds of the area of the building that we need to build. And what we did is we took this outline, the pink area, if you will, and we have included it in the options that you'll see. And then once we go through the options, then I will present to you the budgets for these two options, and then we'll talk about the schedule and where I think we are. Distributed to you a copy of the schedule because you're not going to be able to read it here. And we also copy, not that this is much better, but I can point to you some of the highlights. And then we also distributed the budgets comparison, and also I believe you distributed the variance report so that you can see how these options compare, the square footage is compared to the education specification. So at this point, what I would like to do is ask Taisu to take us through the two options.
Morning.
Morning.
Now, as you saw the first drawing, there is a sort of project limit line. This red line is project limit line we were given. We have to do within that line. This first option, this building fitting in the low end, and initially I thought that's impossible to fit into that because if you remember, this idea was sort of sticking out substantially to that side. But I was keep working at it. It's surprisingly great it worked out, and all the functions fit within that form, and the basic idea of the initial that concept is still there. And it's a little fat, but I think it's more economical than longer one. So I could just go through. You can see basic concept is the same. Still.
So before you go through, I have to ask the question. It looks like that tail up at the upper left is sticking out beyond the property line. Is that the case? This piece?
This.
Yeah. The property line is along here, right?
Yeah.
And then this
I
is
thought
sticking out.
we were working on the limit line like this, not this line.
Well, the answer is the property line, in fact, does jump. The property line goes along here. It does that.
So we stayed within the property line.
I had to point that out because I know you're all thinking about that.
Okay, I like to start from upstairs. I'm going to come back. So as you can see, this is where we are arriving from existing school upper side. So it's the same arriving to this side here. And we do have two entrances. One, the main entrance is here, coming in, and all the administration is all very nicely grouped together here. And as you come in here, there will be a 2 stories high open space, and this area will be raised with skylighted, so it's sort of wonderful light. And we were able to create that vista as you come in, open out to look out wooded area. So it would be nice to come in and see straight ahead wooded area view, and then large open space here. And the other side is more of entrance for kindergarten area. And you come in here, again, next to administration, and coming in here, and there's a stair going downstairs. There is a substantial area, sort of parent come in, wait, and lounging, socializing. So it's a nice community area. And here's a glass here, it's a lookout, sort of nice wooded, and again, wetland area on the south side. It's a really nice place for congregate and breakout area. So you see pre-K, 3 pre-Ks grouped together. This toilet's for parent public toilet. And this K here, 3 Ks, and then 1 and 2 here. And there's a breakout area and second grade toilet area and the reading area here. And the media is right in the middle, and I envision this is all glass and substantially glass, so that when you come in here, it's very transparent. You'll be able to see through this media all this breakout area as well. So I think it would be just wonderful open space with high skylight ceilings. So you go from here downstairs, this one or this one. Let's see, downstairs here, and downstairs you come in here or come in here. It's a 3rd grade here, 4th and 5th here, science and art here, and music here. So it's grouped together, all the special classrooms right here. And the gymnasium is sort of changed from before was here and moved here. There's a number of ways this location is better. Number one, you're coming in here, before was coming in here, so it's really tight against this steep hill. Now it's more generous coming in here, and public coming in here. But then it has opened also from the school side too. And there is a sort of side entrance to close to the stage, and students come in to perform here. So it worked better opening this way. And if you want, we can open up more, and so that cafeteria, this become much more interconnected individually or functionally. And now I think its service works out better too. The service before, if you remember, this way it's coming from back side, it's completely hidden from the public side, and coming in here, all the support is here, and the kitchen is here, server is here, cafeteria is this open space, 2 stories high, wonderful space. And number of small educational support area, ESL, ALP, or OTPT, special ed, and those things are all located here. And again, these are the toilet for the classroom. So it is very compact, and I think the relationship works out really good. And I think entrance has actually improved in my mind than the last plan because of this arrangement and also this arrangement. Again, from cafeteria, we created breakout areas so that you really be able to look out at wooded areas, so it is not entirely interior space. It has view outside. So, as you can see, it's a very compact and close relationship, and I think all the classroom education support relationship works out really nicely. Okay, well, it's going back to, again, just stating this, this entire project building is within the given limited project limit line. So I don't think there is any question about whether we are intruding beyond the given project limit line.
Types of another change is the playground areas.
Okay, I think there is a site plan, isn't it? We don't have site, oh, here it is. I want to go back to site plan, just talking about a little bit about. Okay, so now, existing building is sitting here, and removing this means this entire upper part is available for parkings and play areas, so it's a substantial square footage available. So we have a generous bus, and I think we'll be able to put about 8 buses here. And what's nice about this plan is we put this play area much closer to the entrance, so that there's a substantially large classroom area here, maybe very close to pre-K, right next to entrance. And maybe we have another play area. I remember we have about 23,000 square feet or so play area. And the parking is all here. And this dark one is the parent pickup queuing space. So we counted, including this parking, almost 90 cars will be able to show there. I don't know if you need 90 cars, but 85 cars, but anyway, 85 cars. And then 33 or some queuing space. 40?
Yes.
Queuing
Pay no attention to the man back.
So I think there is enough land, you can design the way you want it. If you want to make it more play area, less parking, yes, you can do it, and so on. So I think relationship is really good. Here's the administration from here. You can observe entire area very clearly, which is very important in security and what's going on. So, and there's a distance, substantial from wetland, and distance from highway to here, this corner is substantial. And now we do have substantial south side exposure from the classroom. So that's scheme 3, and this is the model. We should change the model, I think. So you can see model-wise, I just lift up a little bit, and it fits very nicely. One thing we have to do is, because before was much slimmer building, so we were working with elevation of 46 of edges, building this one. Now this line is more close to 48. So we are raising this building maybe about 2 feet more to do this. But I think that's fine, because now the elevation of the entrance will be 62. Actually, existing your building is 63 or 64. So it's just right. So I think it's fine to raising the building a little more. Okay. I didn't show the rendering. Okay, I didn't show you a rendering. We did a very quick conceptual rendering. It's not carefully studied rendering, but just show you image of what you would see. This is what you would see from coming in from entrance. So you see, because of this elevation and this entrance is about the same, so you will see basically 1-story high building, very small scale, intimate scale, and I think it gives a non-institutional kind of a small child-like scale to it. And here is the main entrance to the school, here is a gymnasium, and this is all administration here. This is the entrance to the kindergarten area. And this side and that side is play area. And but you can see visually what it would look like from the main entrance area. I think we're going to carefully study elevation, but you can sense the scale of the it's not like a buildings that sink into some hole or something like this. Okay, option 4 is a development that basically concept of your original scheme called D scheme, which is some portions is sitting in the same location in here, and then some portions sitting on the upper part and connected with some corridor here. In the side plan you can see, because of this is the existing building, you see the dotted line, and so it occupies the middle portion of it. So you can see we have to work with very tight dimension of site. The bus coming in, it is quite tight, and bus loop coming out, and parking is here, and play area is much smaller. I think parking is like 60, 50 something.
72.
Huh?
72.
72 parking, that's a lot. And the queuing is about
37.
37, and bus about 6 or something. And play area is like 13,000 square feet. So, here concept is, you see building is connecting to upper part and lower part. So, we were thinking in how you capture that in architecturally, the experience of building going from higher part to going down. I think that sort of expression of experience of that connection would be a good thing in architecture. So what we did here is, from main entrance here, there is sort of large grand stair going cascading down to the low level. So, and from here, you'll be able to see straight out to this wooded area. This is 2 stories high cafeteria area. So I think this experience of this, of looking out to this steep hill, and looking out the wooded area, that is sort of explaining how this building sit on a particular this site. And functionally, it works well. Main entrance is here, so as you come in here, you will see this very grand axis going down right here, and administration is located this end, all of them here, and some teachers learning the lounge and work areas here, and pre-K kindergarten entrance, it's this side. So you come in here, and pre-K and kindergarten, and there is sort of a lounge or waiting area, shall I say, so parents be able to wait here and looking out this side. And it's one thing nice is play area here, and pre-KK children be able to go right out to this play area. And then continue, we placed 4th grade here, so that this is early childhood area wing. You start going more, there's a library, it's all glass, so you really see these connections and be able to experience of steep hill and rock here. And you keep going here, and this wing is a suite kind of second and third here, toilets here, and reading space and breakout areas here, and all support, small educational support are all located here, and then science, art studio, this end. So the relationship works good, and this computer lab is right connected to library here. The low level, as I said, you're coming down here. Now this side is basically crawl space under the library. So even though there might be some space here, we're not gonna to open up. It's going to be closed, and so that it will be dark area. Coming in here, you'll be able to see this side, right up grass, right through here. You're coming in here, you arrive, this 2 stories high cafeteria space, and 4th and 5th here, and same way break area is here, and some additional educational support areas here. Music is right next to gymnasium, right here, and public entrance to the gym is here, coming here. Now services, again, this scheme also coming from the east side, so you're coming in here, there's all the receiving, custodial, general storage, kitchen, the server is right here. So again, this plan, I think the relationship wise, it works well. I think educationally, it works well. Now, again, this shows the perimeter of building, the project limit, and how this one fits. So again, it's entire, this project is within the given project limit. Okay, here's well, I did explain to you the site plan, so it's not that different. Now, I don't think you can read it. It's just showing you amazement of scheme 3 versus scheme 4. Can you read this line?
Mm-hmm.
This dark line?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a scheme 3 overlaid on this scheme. So you can see we are almost doing very closely both scheme here. And because of 2 stories high, this area is equivalent to this building. So in my mind, you know, we are doing almost the same thing here, but scheme 4, you are doing additionally all this 1 story high building on higher ground. So, I mean, construction-wise, cost-wise, there is some difference, and I would say, I like to say, the scheme 3 seems much more efficient and simpler and economical. Again, this is quick, just conceptual drawing. You saw PK area, entrance is here. We may be trying to do some much more of a small residential or intimate kind of architecture, so that each room is identified as separate buildings, and then this is main entrance going that big access going in, and so this is just concept-wise. You can see scale-wise possible. I think that's it. Should I turn it over to you?
Sure. You can, well, maybe, let's wait, let me finish this, and then we can on the legs, thanks. Well, we have, did a budget comparison of options 3 and 4 here. You can refer to your handout in case you can't read this from where you're sitting. The first 2 columns represent the square footage that we prepared here. Both schemes are approximately 60,000 square feet, although Taisu's observation about option 4 is correct. It has a little bit more circulation, but I'm trying to give you the information to compare them so that you can compare them not so much on cost, but more on the programmatic site improvements. So what we did is showed you equivalent square footages, 60,000 square feet, and the square footages can be adjusted in both options. But it is true that option 4 has much more perimeter than option 3, and that's what Taisu was referring about, efficiency. So the square footage cost for option 4 is a little bit higher than option 3 in this analysis. we're using the same design and estimating contingencies that we did previously in the other options that we prepared. And we're using similar soft costs. And then owner's contingency, again, my recommendation at this stage is 15% minimum. The CM's opinion may be a little bit different, but in my opinion at this stage, with still quite a bit of uncertainty, I'm allocating 15%, so if you compare these two, you can see the difference in options 3 and 4. Now, one of the items of discussion, I'm sure, for this committee is, what do we do about the portables? Is that part of this project or not? If it is, then you have to add the $2.1 million that's been allocated for that. So then you have the total potential cost here on the bottom line. Now, what if we were able to squeeze both footprints back down to 58,000 square feet, which we should attempt to do? That's where we were roughly on the previous options. And if you did that analysis, you'd see that, again, option 4 is a little bit more than option 3, but closer to the original budget that we were given. And again, if you add the modular classrooms or temporary classrooms, that would be the bottom line here. These are some statistics that we wanted to present to you. There were a number of questions that were raised the last time we did the options. And these are the facts for options 3 and 4. The distance to I-95 property line is 125 feet for option 3, 160 feet for option 4. Number of trees removed, as you can see, 101 for 3, 67 for option 4. These are the play areas. I think Tyson said 13,000, it's more like 18,000 square feet for option 4 in the playground area. And option 3 is 21,000 square feet. Both of these quite a bit more than what you currently have, which is 9,000 square feet. And if you look at the square footage of play area per student, currently you have 34, and even with the increase in population, you're higher, 62 per student or 53 square feet per student. Parking spaces we reported earlier, and then the car queuing capacity is close. Okay, I know this is impossible to read from where you're sitting. Hopefully you refer to your outline, the handout I gave you, and even that might be difficult to read. So what I'm going to do is just highlight some milestone dates. First, let me say that although we've come back to you with 2 more options, we really haven't progressed with schematic design. We're still stuck in that phase. Last time we were about halfway through. We're still not halfway through. So we still have to go through quite a bit more plan development, building elevation. The sketches that Taishi showed you are not final. We have to do a little bit more work with them. We would like to work with the construction manager that you've selected, have them involved in the budgeting and scheduling tasks, have them start doing their constructability reviews, helping us determine whether the lowest level should be built on an elevated structure with columns, or whether it should be built on fill. We're still not certain which is the most cost-effective way to go. But what I want to point out here is we're giving you a week to make a selection. If you look at line item 8, building committee selection of preferred option would be January 20th. And then we would go to the Board of Ed to get their input. We show the very next day, the 21st. I believe you have a Board of Ed meeting scheduled for the 21st. So that's very quick, but that's what I'm suggesting. And then we continue finalizing the schematic design, what I was just talking about, and then getting an estimate from the construction manager, and then having a little bit of time of doing some budget alignment, making sure that we are in agreement with the construction manager's estimate. And then we would present that to the building committee, and hopefully you can authorize us to proceed based upon that budget, go back to Board of Ed for confirmation in February, and then go to the Board of Selectmen for MI referral. And then at some point, we need to make a presentation to the BET. I'm not sure when that should be. I'm suggesting shortly after the Board of Selectmen meeting, but that may be reversed. It's up to you to determine how that should be done. Lines 25 through 34 is another set of tasks associated with the temporary classrooms or portable classrooms. We do need to submit some information to the state. We're expecting by the first week of February to do that, and then doing the design development, and then going again to the Board of Ed for approvals. And again, MI referral, and if the referral is bundled with the building project, and it could occur on the same day. And then we could go to planning and zoning and finalize the site approval process. So that's sort of a couple of months look ahead here. We can certainly discuss this a little bit later. And that's basically it. Oh, there's one more thing. At the last committee meeting, Bill Drake gave me, or asked me a question about whether or not we are preparing the building plan in a position that would accommodate a soccer field in the north-south orientation on the playfield, which is adjacent to this site. I say adjacent, but it's really one whole campus, as we know, including the library. It's all one big campus. But there is a property line, there is a right-of-way that runs through this parcel. So in order to achieve a soccer field that was on the sketch prepared by Giusalpi, we would have to cross that right-of-way, and we would have to encroach on the footprint of the proposed building. This is option one illustrated here, just for the sake of comparison. And if we had to do that, then we would have to push this building further south. And I'm not sure that the committee needs to discuss that and resolve this. My recommendation is that you consider a multi-purpose field rather than a full soccer field. Now, soccer fields vary. There's no one standard size. It depends upon the play area that you're working in. It depends upon if you belong to a league, whether there are certain guidelines for that league. But this represents 140 feet by 185 feet, which is suitable for multi-use purposes, and probably for youth soccer. I'm talking about elementary school, not high school. But even youth fields, legitimate youth fields, would be 175 feet compared to this minimum, compared to this 140. So we'd have to go wider by 185 feet. So we do have that dimension, but it would have to be a little bit wider. And if you go wider, then you're going to get into some rock and some cutting there. I'm trying to keep it all within the property lines on both sides and with enough play area beyond that, maybe 10 or 15 feet beyond that play area. So that needs to be discussed by the committee. Are we moving this building to accommodate a full soccer field or not?
Well, just to clarify, if you move the building south, you'd be outside of the perimeter that was the guidance given by the
In both cases, in options 3 and 4, we would have to do that, yes, go beyond the pink area.
Is that your presentation?
That's the end of our presentation.
Excellent, okay. So,
Oh, excuse me, could you lift that a little to the model
Sure.
for this one?
Children, yes.
So why don't we spend a little bit of time on some questions regarding options 3 and 4, if you have them now. If not, we also then at the sort of end of this portion of the meeting will talk about our next steps, our next meeting. Just to let you know, one suggestion has been to meet Friday morning, either for further deliberation or a vote, depending on how many questions and what gets answered and so forth and so on. So, if not, then we'll have a meeting then just the following Wednesday, the 20th. So that's sort of what's in play right now. So with that, questions for the Tai-Su Kim team relative to these proposals? Let me just start off. You know, a lot has been talked about in terms of safety and access. And I thought I heard you all say at one point, or somebody say, that you needed access on all four, at all four corners of the building, or all four sides of the building. And I don't see that in either one of these plans. So,
Okay, access doesn't necessarily mean a paved road all the way around. We are suggesting a paved road on the eastern side, that's the top side. So it could do double duty. It could serve as a delivery drive, and it may extend beyond what we're showing,
Yeah.
depending upon the fire marshal's decisions. He needs to get his equipment a certain dimension in, and then he could reach the rest of the way with personnel and with fire hoses. So you don't need to have a driveway all the way around.
But we can extend this one, continue all the way here, maybe turn around like this.
And that's the fire marshal's decision.
And even this one, I think there is a desire that road does not cut off from access this. So, but that can be also grass paved or gravel kind of road connection here. It's that we have to discuss. And there will be some pedestrian walkway about, or small vehicle accessible right along the building, about 12 feet wide. It's a flat area all around here. So it has access all around.
and then those who are concerned about the finances of this, just want to make sure. So none of the numbers you showed up there include the field, correct?
Correct.
They do not include desks and chairs and things like that?
Yes, they do.
They do.
That's within the line identified as soft costs.
Fair enough. All site work?
Depends on what you mean by all. Because I was asked, well, will there be nature trails? Are we cleaning up the site? Honestly, I didn't anticipate that. However, you have a 15% contingency. That's why I recommend a 15% contingency. You may wish to allocate some of that to site improvements that we haven't talked about.
Unanticipated remediation.
And right, and I'm assuming there's no contaminants in the ground. Nothing we've seen so far would suggest that. The only thing we've seen is the oil tank, where the old oil tank is or was on the school site, which is not significant. And there was also, in our discussion with town staff, a potential for reforestation. I believe the forester or tree warden has walked the site, and he's going to make a decision or make a recommendation to planning and zoning and the environmental team in the town for whether we replace trees, and how many and what size and where.
Others? Laura?
So the schedule calls for about a 13-month construction window. In your opinion, do either of these options, is there more risk entailed with the constructability in order to meet that window, or are both about the same?
Well, I'm assuming that in both cases, the children are not on the site, that the CM can take possession of the whole site, that there won't be a phasing requirement. At one time, one of the options we talked about, the potential for phasing and extending the duration as a consequence. So the answer is no. I don't see any extended duration, no need for phasing, and they both could be done within that time period.
In that same vein, can either one of these options, can the children remain in the current school with either one of these options?
Option 3 could allow that.
Mr. Conway, you?
I'm just wondering, I saw it in option 4, where the roofs are slanted. Have you folks anticipated maybe looking at solar power to be put in on any of the options so that we can maybe save some cost down the road?
It's a good idea. We haven't done that. It does pay for itself fairly quickly. We've done it on some schools recently, but honestly, we haven't even looked at the MEP components, mechanical, electrical, plumbing components. That's something we need to do in the second part of schematic design. We'll look at any energy saving measures such as photovoltaic. I don't believe that geothermal will be an option, but we'll certainly look at that. We'll look at the possibility of increasing the typical insulation. That has a good payback. Alternatives in fuel, alternative methods of heating and cooling, radiant flooring versus other kinds of heating. So that's still to come. The second part of our schematic effort has to be done.
Thank you.
Tony?
Yes, I'm looking at the variance report. Both the computer lab numbers and the mechanical numbers, they vary significantly from the ed specs. Is that okay? Is that still to be worked out?
It's okay only if you say it's okay. I don't think you're going to say it's okay. So it still needs to be worked out.
Okay.
I do, like I said, at this point we're halfway through. We do need to spend quite a bit of time now massaging this, both of these plans.
Right.
We've brought the designs up to a point where you can sort of tell the difference between the two, and we're confident we can make both of them wonderful buildings, and we can work the plan to make that variance much, much smaller.
I had a further question about safety, and Steve brought it up when we were talking about access, but I wonder about egress on the south side. Like if there's nowhere for anyone to go if something should be occurring on the other side. Because you're locked in.
Right now, this plan we are showing scheme for, there should be a door here.
Right.
And so you have access kind of this way to the south side. You mentioned, talking about
Right,
south
but
side.
then what,
Yeah,
where
right.
would you go from the south side if something were occurring on the other side? I mean,
Well, if you
the
do
neighborhood.
develop a wetland area for educational use or something, you could use this area as a more of a educational explorations. Now,
But you do need to create a path.
yeah,
that
we
brings
have
you
to
to a-
show
to
the
a public
path.
way.
Yeah.
Correct.
And actually, scheme
Is that
well,
now necessary?
this kind of substantially more of not only visually but also access-wise open out to the south side here and with the step or ramp, it just going out to this side.
The question is leaving that side, if you had to
Yeah.
leave that area.
Where do you go after
Where
that
do you
is
go
the
after
question.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
landscape, I developed this as a nature trail or whatever it is, yeah.
Larry?
Can you just confirm that both of these designs comply with the SSIC standards, which include the issues that are being raised right now?
They will. There's a lot of things in the standards, including security cameras, security devices, and so on, glazing, vestibules. So both of these will comply.
And they cover ingress and egress.
They will, yes.
What's so one would think that a curved wall is more expensive than a straight wall.
One would think so.
Can you talk a little bit about that
Sure.
relative between 3 and 4?
We've had this conversation many times with CMs over the course of our lives. It depends upon whether or not in a bidding situation, so let's say if this were a masonry wall. Masons typically will take off a building when they're doing their estimate in terms of square footage. And if they're competitive, they ignore the fact that it's curvilinear. We would not curve the glazing, because we know it's very expensive to do that. So, and you want standard kinds of glazings that would be available in case that we need to replace them. So we're only talking about the possibility of curving a wall. And again, I believe in the competitive bid situation, that isn't taken into account. There are some issues that we do need to think about such as the ceilings and the flooring material in the classrooms that are not perfectly square. You wouldn't want to do a grid ceiling like this necessarily because you're going to have odd pieces and quite a bit of waste. But you might do a linear ceiling, which would look better when it is used in a space such as this. So there is some cost associated with it. I don't believe it's a significant cost.
Well, I mean, this curve is the distance. This low level will be masonry. It's just not, as a mason point of view, it's not curved wall. It's so gentle, so you can see the distance-wise, you know, this is almost 30 feet long and it's almost straight. And the same thing here is very gentle, and I would say a stud wall.
Curvy walls have been done since the beginning of
Yeah.
time.
So I don't think this is really what you call cost prohibitive curve building. No, it's not. It's not what I call curve building.
Other questions from the committee at this time? Yeah.
Option 4, the connection between both sides, the library and the grand stair. Both exterior elevations of that are glazed, so where it's wide open
Yeah.
all the way through. So in the library media center, in that grand stair, you're actually having a total sense of the outside and the detachment of both buildings.
Correct.
Up above that actually is a skylight as well, that runs past the spine of that.
Whether it's a skylight or whether it's clear story windows, we haven't decided, but the idea is to get
Light doing
daylight right through that spine from one end to the other. As Taisu mentioned, at the end of that axis, from the entry point, looking toward the end, you have a glass wall with a view of the woods. But there'd be light filtering in from up above as well. And you don't need a lot of openings to get a lot of light into that space. We envision that you'll be able to use that during the daytime without turning lights on, which is, again, another energy-saving feature. We are strong believers in getting daylight where it should be and not have to turn lights on.
One of the questions we asked in the last round was vertical and horizontal travel times. Could you speak to it generally in terms of contrasting 3 versus 4? I would just suspect that being more compact, 3 would be easier or faster to navigate through.
It would be.
Less schlepp.
I think your intuition is correct. It would be. We haven't done that calculation. We can follow up with that.
Well, if you remember, this scheme 3 is about like this, right? And so the travel, you add this much of travel time.
Yeah, my question picks up a lot on what Claire just asked and heads up to Barbara and Claire with my question. From managing these 2 different designs, design 3 to me feels a lot like 2 of our more recent buildings, Cos Cob and Glenville, in that you've got largely a square organization, but the management of it, the flow of it, the grouping seems to be more conducive to the teaming we do. I mean, our kids go to schools in classrooms, but those classrooms have to be connected to the full school.
Right.
That's the success of New Lebanon. Let me repeat that. You got it. Our teachers work together outside of those classrooms. It seems easier with option 3 than option 4. And again, it approximates what's going on in Cos Cob, relatively new building in history, but very new building in Glenville. So I don't know if you could comment on that.
I like to comment on this one. May feel like well, it is made of 2 buildings connected, and same way you will going to feel this is one school, this is another school. It's connected versus this plan is basically when you come in, you experience this as a one, and all interrelated. In my mind, you know, this really conducive more creating feeling of community as a school, the building, you know, work together, know each other, and met better rather than separating with the wings. So. I agree.
And again, I know for the committee's benefit, at some point Barbara or Claire would comment, but my gut feels better about this one in that regard. Also, like our newer buildings, there's a little bit of a cushion in that if that main entrance, visitors are, you have the preschool wing, but visitors are not dumped right into a classroom area.
Correct.
They're coming into administration area with a bit of a natural cushion between classrooms. Before, it seemed that you immediately got administration, but you immediately have classrooms right there. And our older buildings have that. You go to Riverside, you have that, but those are old. Our newer buildings, you get a little bit of a cushion. Scott's a slight exception, but still, there's that sense of administration can greet whomever. But again, I don't know if people want to comment on that, who actually run the current New Lebanon.
Totally agree with that, though. This has a feeling of oneness.
Right.
Which is very important. It has a lot of breakout areas. It certainly has that vision throughout. So you're looking at the woods and all different areas, but yet it's still bringing the school together. I think it looks like it would, again, I have to study a little bit more, but it looks like it would be a really collaborative environment. It's also, to me, another issue is, aside from the programming, is the whole safety issue of drop-off and moving people in and out at the beginning of the day. It just looks like it would make a whole lot more sense. It's much smoother and cohesive, which begins the day quite positively when we can do that. But I do see this as a much more collaborative environment. My only concern, and again, this is something I think will be worked out over time, that a lot of the services are all in downstairs, so to speak. So there's not a whole lot of service area for the younger students, and they won't need those service areas. I think that's discussions we can have with the utilization of the space in general.
Yeah, well, I think we can add more this kind of ESL or reading or world language. I think we can shuffle around that. So,
The other design has it a little bit more on both floors, but
Yeah.
this is a little, would have to be massaged.
okay.
I just want to echo some of what Barbara said, and I think that allowing the building all be together really does help with our collaboration and also, with our IB focus and, working really transdisciplinary and having everybody around and still around that hub of the library and media center will be essential for that.
Can you comment, because it came up, I think, both at the Board of Ed meeting, this committee as well, and a little bit with the Board of Selectmen, the interplay of utilization of the gym to the field, regardless of where the field is, and vehicular traffic. And that was talked about last week. Can you just briefly talk about it both with 3 and 4?
Sure. In both options, the gymnasium is placed at the lowest level and close to the field, as close as we could get to the field. We do need to discuss whether the road that passes Richard Street that currently exists, in what form that continues, whether it's an emergency drive, whether it's grass pavers, or whether it's a paved road, still needs to be discussed. This diagram suggests that it's removed.
Can you go to the lower level where the gym actually is?
This is, oh, sorry, okay.
This diagram suggests that Richard Street is removed, and then the park just extends right up to the building. But that would require Service Drive to come off of the residential street up above, the connection up above, which may not be desirable. So there is some rationale for keeping just a driveway along the southern side, along the northern side of the building.
But eliminated from option 1, which was a criticism, was that you'd have dumpsters and the like. You'd have students walking past that. I think you said there would be a ramp there, if memory serves me correct. In this scenario, even if you keep the street there, your access from the gym to the field, other than potentially crossing that road, there's no longer that close proximity of dumpsters and the like.
That's correct.
Next to students.
That's correct. All of those service, delivery, dumpsters is on the blind side, around the corner.
And the same holds true for 4?
Yes. Well, you can actually arrange service coming from this road. I mean, if you do close, what's this road there?
Richard Street.
Yeah, coming in here, then you can surely can close this.
Stephen, for clarification,
Those people aren't gonna like
and you know this as well, that road that exists there currently never existed before except when the Byram Shrewsbury Library was renovated, and the neighborhood association agreed to allow for that to become an actual parking area. Originally, Richard Street ended at the bottom there into
Oh,
a turn,
okay.
so it never did exist before, prior to Byram Shrewsbury Library being constructed,
Renovated.
renovated, I'm sorry.
Well, in that case, we can close it and feed the extended
That part of it.
That's going to be, I'm sure, an issue.
Ron?
You spoke about the design efficiencies between 3 and 4. Does that translate also to significant operating efficiencies in the buildings?
Well, I think so. It's, did quick exterior calculation. Scheme 3 was like 24,000 square feet of exterior wall versus 35,000, about 20% more, 20 to 30% more. Scheme 4 means, you know, you lose more energy. The roof, same thing. Roof area is almost 1/3 larger. Scheme 4 means you lose more energy. So substantial, if you just translate directly, you can see what percentage of energy Scheme 4 lose more than Scheme 3. Because the containment is the basic, envelope of this. And you can see this is about 1/3 larger exterior roof area than this Scheme 3. So in that way, I would say, yes, it's
Thank you.
much more economical.
Tricia?
I was just commenting that in option 3, it seems very good for evening activities, for concerts and gyms, and perhaps you can answer that better than me, but the entrance on the upper level, they're going right down to the gym and cafeteria, however you use those spaces for activities is very good and doesn't pass through the classroom.
And the increased parking, we have to go on that as well, with the flow.
The
Very-
cafeteria being in the middle of the school as it is, does it present any kind of an acoustical problem for the upper floors, particularly where the sound can rise, it is open above?
That's a good question. I know some people are concerned about it. It's been expressed before. I would encourage you to visit a school that has that, to experience it and get the administration's input. But I believe if you treat it properly acoustically, and we have an acoustics consultant as part of the team, I don't think it will be an issue. The fact that it's open actually makes it available all day long. And it ends up being a place where students do projects, where you have an exhibition. You know, if it's just a lunchroom tucked away, then it's not as useful, I believe. So that's what we're trying to do. Since we're trying to create collaborative breakout areas, our cafeteria is a perfect place to do that.
We will introduce lots of sound absorbing material on the wall and also balcony area and the ceiling area. So you will absorb a lot of sound. And I think I would encourage to open up this as much as possible so that it feels like a gymnasium is not tucked away, but it's open. And if we introduce some several of glass doors, it's just become one big room, and they use back and forth. I think wonderful relationship between open cafeteria and gymnasium.
I did the due diligence on the Tokenique school that you designed, and they have something similar. And I did ask that question about the layout. And both two people in the administration, the principal and the superintendent, said that it actually encouraged that collaboration you were talking about, and it did not create an acoustic problem.
Okay, why don't we, Michael, and then we'll wrap it up.
Just one last question. On the traffic flow, which is an issue for the community, would it be safe to say, or in your opinion, the most optimal traffic flow comes with the option 3 design? Is that true to keep cars off of the main road? And which is the more optimal for drop-off for the kids, safest with relation to the buses and all?
Well, we did do that analysis. I don't have the figures ahead of me, in front of me, but, do you have the numbers by any chance? The parking count and the drop-off queuing lane?
You have parking spaces of 3 of 85 and 4 of 72, and car queuing of 40 and 3 versus 37 and 4.
So there's greater capacity in 3, and you're really using the whole plateau, so you have a lot more flexibility. The playground areas are bigger, the bus drop-off is bigger, so.
Richard, when you were talking about that when it was option 1, you said there would be 3 lanes.
The same would apply here.
Is that gonna happen in 4 as well, or
Yes.
just in 3?
3 and 4 can be done the same way.
One thing I'd like to comment, this option 3 has, as you can see, distance from here is much greater.
Yeah.
And the existing grade is pretty steep here. And so now you have, the distance to mitigate that steepness much easier than this one. This one, I think the turning radius is really challenging. It's less than 110, and they, our civil engineer like 110 distance between from turning radius, and as you can see, this will be very challenging. And not impossible, but I would say this distance of the slope will be challenging.
Okay, so why don't we talk about steps moving forward, and where we want to go as a committee. Obviously, our next sort of strategic date is the 21st for the Board of Ed, in the hopes of getting it before them on their agenda that day. Any thoughts, comments from committee members on that?
Anticipating the next, I know Richard put a later date, but I thought we were trying to work out something with the selectmen to make this quicker and maybe get it in on the 22nd. Is that possible?
We have no control over that. There's still our discussions with the Board of Selectmen as to what to do. Let's focus on what we can do and what's in front of us.
Hey, Steve, just to aid the discussion and to speed this along, if we do meet next week to vote on this, and then we want to present to the Board of Ed on Thursday, it would be helpful to get these materials electronically, to conference with some of the Board of Ed members to help move that discussion along.
Agreed. Although it's easier if we have a decision sooner rather than later.
Are you looking for a proposed meeting date?
I'm just asking for opinions as to where you think we should go. Again, as I said at the outset, I've heard one suggestion to meet earlier than next Wednesday. There's a balance to that. Obviously, we're all familiar with the site, we're familiar with the issues. We've heard them both from the Board of Selectmen, from the Board of Ed, from the community, pertaining to the other options. That those same issues haven't gone away. The wetlands are still there, 95 is still there, expanding or not, and the field is still there. So, from my perspective, it's all about how comfortable we are and how quickly we can become comfortable in making a decision. If this committee feels the need that we should wait and digest all this and have another sort of round of question and answers like we did before and wait till next Wednesday, that's certainly the sort of last date we have if we want to keep on this schedule. If we want to increase that to try to get more time in the hopes that we can get the CM on board, and that obviously has to do with the law department a little bit, and get Tai-Soo King to start refining one option as opposed to, continue to work on sort of 2 options. Well, that's another aspect of the conversation. So that's really what I'm looking for. Patricia?
I think it'd be very valuable to meet with all 3 selectmen so that we could have their input, if it is possible to meet with them even by the end of the week, so that when we did vote, we'd have their input rather than what happened the last time.
Sure, but that's a meeting of the Board of
Avoid it.
Selectmen. And so then you talk about process, and quite frankly, our decision should be independent from them. They can make their decision. Their right is to review what the Board of Ed refers to them. So from my perspective, the onus is on them to educate themselves. We'll be presenting to the Board of Ed, and as I said before, we'll be presenting to the Board of Selectmen.
And when will the video be available?
I can talk to Don after the meeting.
Video?
Steve, I do note that the meeting next Wednesday is a night meeting. I don't know if that adds additional challenges, but I know for the Board of Ed, we try to get things to the board several days beforehand, so that is giving us less than 24 hours to turn that around.
Can we provide this presentation anticipating the decision so that we can give it to them this week, so they have the week to look at it, and then what's following is just the recommendation? Is that a possibility? Would that work? Would that help with the?
Here's the issue. Once again, we find ourselves in this. This town has a charter that says the building committee selects a site, selects, builds a building on a site, and it comes down to whether or not the town wants one building committee or three. And so we have a decision to make, and the question before us simply is, when do you want to meet? I think we should focus on that as opposed to what other boards are going to do with this.
I think we should meet this week.
Thank you, Chitty.
I'll second.
Hold on, one at a time. Other thoughts on whether or not we meet this week?
Is that enough time for the new Lebanon community to digest it, think about it? I mean, obviously, they've been with us all along through pushes and pulls, but it's 24 hours, or sorry, 48 hours, is that enough?
Good
I'm not
point.
doubtful.
No,
I'm just
and that's been the sort of push and pull even in my own mind about whether or not we sort of expedite this. I hesitate to offer up any other dates. I know the RTM is right in the throes of what they're doing. I think they're meeting, Monday's a holiday, which complicates it. Tuesday evening is the RTM meeting of next week. And then you're at Wednesday, whether it's morning or evening, and that's a good point, thank you for raising it. Maybe we want to just push the meeting to Wednesday morning, but that still gives the Board of Ed then effectively 36 hours to receive our final decision. Now, we can get all this information to them beforehand, but it only gives them then 36 hours if we want to stay on this timeline. So, good point, one that I thought of, and that's the balance.
Well,
Patricia?
to take,
No,
sorry,
go ahead, you finish.
to take that a step further, when I heard the educational practitioners' comments, and we haven't, well, I don't think we've heard them to that degree of teaming and collaboration, when you're really talking about manufacturing a quality product for the student, and how the teachers will come together and do their business, so to speak. I was very moved by that, and I think that's material information. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't have maybe a one-pager from the practitioners that say, here's why we like version A versus B, because we think the quality of the learning, which is ultimately what we're all about here, will be the best, and here's why. My sense is you guys could probably put that together very quickly, but do we need time for that to get around? We've never seen that before, and would that be a point of information that we should get, and therefore is Friday too early versus Wednesday? Again, I'm not suggesting it, but we've got to think about that.
I think it can happen, but I think it's already been addressed, having been on the feasibility team with Barbara and Mike and a few other people in the room. When we developed the ed specs, and HISU's had it since we sent the RFP, all our guiding principles of what the building should be, I think there were 7 or 8 guiding principles about the collaborativeness. Why they put the media center where they did is specifically from the work we did with the teachers. There was a lot of intensive back and forth and dialogue. So I think a lot of those things about the collaboration, IB being embedded into IC, well, IB is embedded into this design. I see that just from all the work that we've done prior. So I don't think it's that difficult. It's already baked into the ed specs, so to speak.
Patricia?
I have great respect for the bio community and want to have their input, but I feel that we have had their input at a very high level in option 1 and D revised and 2, thank you, were presented. Now, while these are a lot more refined and within the designated footprint, they're not significantly different, so that it's so fresh that everybody would have to really look at it and see something so new. It's just that it's, you know, brought to another level within that footprint. So I don't feel we'd be going outside and not considering their needs, and I know they're very, very anxious to keep on this schedule. And if we fall off and everything gets pushed and we have any implications for getting the grants, I think that would be a lot worse. I think we would be respecting them because they are developments of the scheme 1 and 2.
Do people feel comfortable meeting this Friday?
I'm not available.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Okay, but who's not available for a Friday morning meeting, either in person or via telephone?
Telephone?
I'm gonna be on a plane, so depending on what time it is.
Same here. But I'm ex officio, I'm far less important.
Ms. Riccio, do you think we could get the pros and cons aimed between for Friday?
Yeah, by tomorrow.
I think that's the only thing I think would preclude me from having a meeting on Friday. I think actually, in respect to the environment community, this new presentation will be out there, and as Patricia said, they're expecting something new, but we're not deviating from something that we haven't seen before. I'm confident we probably can make a decision on Friday. I just want to make sure that the end user is on board with what we're seeing here.
And just so it's crystal clear, this goes back from the first interviews, quite frankly, with Tyson. And your position has always been, and correct me if it's changed, but that you intend to hold several quasi-public meetings with various user groups, including the community, the teachers, the staff.
Absolutely.
Relative to the building before going to schematic design.
Before proceeding beyond schematic design, or during the latter part of schematic design, we do need some input from the educators. And we can also have input from the neighbors, but I think we would get in much more detail after schematic design.
All right, so why don't we set up a meeting for Friday, 8 o'clock in this building, assuming that it's available. Ron or Jim can just confirm that. And if for some reason we don't have the information, I'll cancel the meeting and we'll vote on Wednesday. But as of right now, we'll schedule it for that. Will you be available?
Yes, sir.
Steve, one other point. If we could ask I'm sure there's a better word for practitioners, but work with me on this. If we could hear from the educators also, that your view about the whether or not 3 versus 4 would be better from the IB curriculum that we know is, you know, we talk about the racial imbalance and this being a magnet school and so forth. And maybe there's no difference between the two, but I think we need to know that. And if there is a difference, then what is that? So let's think about the future and what we want to turn this into, and ultimately its purpose. If we could ask you all to give some thought to that, would be very helpful as well.
Dean, and then we'll move on.
Could we know also, is there anything in this variance report that, you know, alters what you're doing enough? Well, this reflects what you're doing, you know, because it does represent a slight alteration to various aspects in the ed specs.
No, let me correct that. We're not asking for a revision to the ed specs at all. But I do think we owe you a report that says where we stand at the moment relative to the ed specs.
Yeah.
We do need to get as close to the ed specs as we can. And then if there's a substantial change, obviously there'd need to be a revision. Or you could deem it not a substantial change if you were only talking a few square feet. So, no, I'm not asking for a deviation from the ed spec.
Okay. Bill, item 3.
Part of
this whole campus is the field, and so it wasn't part of the ed spec to talk about why, but today, we have an opportunity to do something permanent and excellent for the community and for the school and the children in terms of the athletic field, and so it's something we should consider. Today, we're gonna have, I hope, to hear from Mr. Siciliano, who's Commissioner of Parks and Recreation, who's here, and Mike Pacino, who's our Connecticut Assemblyman, who went through phys ed in this school. Maybe Steve did too. And Barbara or Dean or whoever else would like to shed light on how, what's the outcome we want for that field. My view is, if we have a road there, we've already tossed it in the air. Let's not be constrained by that. Let's think creatively. This is a board that's trying to accomplish something for the town. You have the opportunity to lift some obstacles, to make some changes. You're going to make decisions here that are going to last a generation of making an excellent facility in phys ed is part of ed. So, Joe, would you like to talk to us?
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe Siciliano, the Director of Parks and Recreation. And through Bill, has been asked to come and speak a little bit about the new Lebanon School field, as we refer to it, even though the newspaper and others refer to it as the William Street field. For many, many years, that's what we index it as. So if you hear me calling it New Leb School Field, please understand we're talking about the same space. The Department of Parks and Recreation last year, meaning last summer season, through this fall, scheduled about 26,000 hours of field time throughout the town. And that is with all the playing surfaces that we have. That does not include the time that's used by the Board of Education for gymnasium, for gym classes, or possibly any after-school activities and special events that they might have. This is really direct community use, recreational use, clubs, sports, teams, et cetera, et cetera. What we determined about 3 or 4 years back, the Board of Parks and Recreation did a survey, and we determined that we, at that time, were about 5,000 hours of field space short of satisfying what the requests were. So we can't satisfy everybody's need. I don't assume that we're ever going to satisfy all the needs of the requests, but at some point, as we're doing these projects, we should look forward to see what might assist us in that possibility of just taking a little bite out of that deficiency that we have. Also, in the Barham location, I grew up Ham School, went through the whole Greenwich school system, played many sports on this field against, the neighborhood kids at Barham, know the field well. The field's been played the way it's been played because it's always been there in the form that it's been there. We've adapted what activities we put on this field to basically the layout that's been there for 50 years, and greater. So this is an opportunity to kind of look at the orientation of the field in combination with the other fields that are in the Barham area, what possibly we could use this field for, whether it be a full soccer field, a multi-purpose field, whether it be for younger folks, or combination of what we have at New Leb, Western Middle School, Glenville School, and our folks who schedule and maintain these fields really know that combination of how that perspective really works and how it works in the region of Barham, but also throughout the region of the whole town. So this would be a great opportunity for us to get in some of the conversation and to see what we could possibly offer as information, and also you can understand what we're coming from at some point. And I do know this from dealing with Glenville School and Hamilton Avenue School and the other schools that have been updated, and some schools prior to probably everybody else in this room being here that were added to, what the effects are at the end of the project. Why did we do this? Because now we need a field. Ham Ave School is the perfect storm in the sense that the building was built and we have left with field that's really basically not usable. Even the gym teacher won't use it. So now we have a situation where we're looking at how do we retrofit. Let's not do that in this project. Let's try to look at it ahead of time and do a little planning. The last two seasons that would be played on this field, which was 13 and 14, there were about 1,200 hours of permitted field time, which came through my office, assigned to this field. That does not include any time that the gym classes were out there, after school programs, special events, or just general community use. So we permitted about 1,200 hours of field time at the New Leb School field, which is basically evenings, Saturdays and Sundays, when, basically from April through November. So we need to take a look at that and to see where we can kind of come to a compromise, what it would be used for in conjunction with the other fields that are within the region. We also looked at transporting. Being a parent whose kids played sports, I'm sure everybody else in this room has the same situation. It becomes much more comfortable if you can work within the region, so you're not driving cross town to field, or east to west, north to south, and all of these other things that parents do to subsidize their kids in being able to play sports. So at the end of the day, we would look at it regionally, what we could accomplish. We'd look at it probably, in that bigger picture of what we have in our index or inventory, and to see what really, realistically, what might be the best thing to do here. Obviously, we're not acquiring any more land at great paces here in Greenwich, Connecticut, so we need to use the fields that we have in a much more effective and efficient way. And my plea is just to allow us in the conversation. I've had people that have worked for me for years. I have real professionals that have been scheduling fields, recreational people, field maintenance people that have all been down the road and could maybe make some constructive suggestions on how we can end up a winner for everyone. That's really what my discussion is this morning. And so we'd be more than happy to make ourselves available when you'd like to speak to us in order to look at that. Another side that just came up when we were sitting here talking is that my organization, Parks and Recreation, is probably 90% of the people that do the field maintenance. They do all the field maintenance. We do all of the landscaping. We also do all of the sidewalk maintenance as far as snow plowing and all of that other stuff. That's not a bad conversation to get in either, because at the end of the day, when it's snowing and we're trying to maintain the school grounds and stuff like that, there's got to be a place to put some of this material, snow and these other things. These are the kind of things we look at after the project's handed to us and say, geez, could have just been a better way to put the flow of the project or the grounds site plan, could have been a better way to do this, so that we also have an opportunity to look at how we produce the final product, which is trying to get schools open at the end of the day. So we'd be more than happy to discuss that also. We have a lot of statistics about field use. People that work for me have the knowledge of what groups are using fields, and also they've all been experienced in where the possible expansions are of some of these groups and what the community's really been asking for. Between New Leb School and Barham Shore, those are the two largest green space in the Barham area. Barham Shore or Barham Park is pretty built out at this point, so this may be the only opportunity in the Barham area to look at how we can tweak that to get something that's usable by everyone. That's it.
Bill, do you want to follow up with that? I think, you have a bunch of useful information, obviously, in all your work that would inform the project design and layout. Can we propose, what Joe's offering is to make him and his team available to you. Would you organize a work session together that would enable you to benefit from that experience and information he can provide?
It depends on what we're talking about. If you're talking about planning the upper parking lot area, driveways for snow shelves and...
I think that's worth a cursory review, so we're stuck with doing that at the end of the day.
No, that's perfectly fine.
No, I wasn't talking about snow. We're back on the field.
I'm on the field side.
I'm talking about the field.
Oh, so if you're talking about fields, I look for direction from the committee.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to achieve through a work session.
Is it fair to say, just because that's a whole another level of discussion, is it fair to say that any one of these design options could be, and I know it would then push against the outside boundary, so I completely understand that, but
could any one of the options, including these two, be simply pushed to the south to accommodate a bigger field if you were to say, we want a regulation soccer field, for instance?
Well, you can see the line. If town say, okay, you're willing to expand this line to, let's say, 40, 50 feet, then you can certainly slide the building and accommodate this side.
It might even, I'm sorry, it might even be more, because if you have a service drive or a driveway.
Right, okay, so those are, but just to understand that shouldn't necessarily implicate the design options we
Well,
see.
I think it does, Steve, because it pushes the top as well. You'd have to move the bridges, the bus drop-off, and the play areas as well to accommodate the shift.
Well, there's
I think,
another,
just
Hold on.
informally speaking, Steve's asking another question, like what are the parameters and which have priorities? Just in terms of a general conversation, if you were to ask, and Drew's here somewhere, but if you were to, I think if you were to ask Mr. Tessie, would he flow that dimension that way in order to build a optimal field design? The answer would be yes, and the reason I know that is because I asked him.
I have a comment though, when the budget was set, there was no discussion on a regulation field. And in order to accomplish it, it's not only implication for a building that we had not given the architects that direction for until now, but it would require a substantial retaining wall, and then any hope of Richard Street being open so that it could be used for a, emergency street.
You are,
We had mentioned several times.
you are correct.
And it's a very tight site, so in order, by putting such an onerous restriction on designing this building and accomplishing the best school we can within the site we have, and enlarging the school to the degree we are, I think it's probably just squeezing a little bit too much out of this site.
Right, but Patricia's right. This is a wall that was suggested in the sketch done by Gisolfi, and he's right. This whole corner of the site is rock. It's a rock outcropping. If you go visit the site, you'll see it. So in order to get a play field here that has the right pitch, slopes, you're going to be ripping out rock. Not that it's impossible. It is possible. You just need the budget for it.
And just so that everybody on the committee understands that the field, unfortunately, is not part of the aspects. And so that's just something that we have to deal with, at least at this point. Claire, and then Peter, and then...
I think the first thing is we have to keep in mind that right now we are under a shaded area of use for the building, and what that impacts includes the field. And then the second thing is working with the green space we currently have in the form of the school field as it exists, which is really underutilized by the school. It's used once a year for field day. We would at least be, with this project, getting the same sized ball field oriented properly. So at a basis, we're getting at least what we started with. And then in my mind, the potential is some form of a multi-use. For the school, any field that is usable is better than what we have now, which is an unusable field. So the multi-use in terms of a school perspective is, it is what it is. The kids can kick around and just do games. They don't need regulation this, that, or the other. What on the town side, I think it really becomes more of a, what uses can we make of this multi-use field that is given to us? I think once you start going into regulation this, regulation that, we start to get into these areas of difficulty, unless we are given direction by the selectmen that we are allowed to then move the building and then make regulation size. And I don't think that's where we are right now. I think we work with what we have, we optimize it to the best we can, we let Parks and Rec know that we're gonna make it a better multi-use field, and they can figure out what they can fit or do on it.
Peter.
So, Joe, in your inventory of fields, I think you forgot to mention Western and also the field by Dorothy Hamill, which are also used by people from the Byram community and the whole western side of town.
Well, I agree, there is Western Middle School, and then there is Barn School Field, but that's a 90-foot baseball diamond at Barn School Field. Highly unlikely it's used anything else but then for 90-foot baseball. What we're really talking about here is that this is a hub Barn has a large population of children, so your children will be the ones who will be playing baseball here in the Barn region, because that's how we try to schedule, so that you're not driving to Old Greenwich, you're not driving to Parkway, you're not driving to all of these other places. So by saying, you know, give them what they want, you know, we'll give them what they need, or what the end result is maybe a little short-sighted, in the sense that at some point the Barn community, after the school, will say, you know, in the evenings, every Saturday and Sunday, through all the spring, summer, and fall months, give them, you know, just give them what the leftover is and let them do what they can with it. That's not what, I think you need to think outside of that, to say, my children, your children, other children that are coming will be playing baseball here, they'll be playing soccer here, they'll be using it for those types of things. How far can we push it, knowing that we are pushed to the max on field space, we are pushed to the max on any potential growth of field space, and you know, and I won't go into the lighted situation, because that's a whole different deal. But at the end of the day, other towns, the only way they're increasing their inventory of fields is by lighting them and having an operation where you could play past the dark hours. And that's how other towns are doing this. We haven't seemed to be able to do that here. And at the end of the day, we're stuck with, you know, as you say, what we get. And I really think that we just need to look at that and make sure that we have that combination of soccer fields, baseball diamonds for 90 feet, at 60 feet, an inventory in the western end of town, so that folks are saying, well, you know, I gotta drive my kid to Central Greenwich, I gotta drive to Old Greenwich, I gotta drive here and there. It's always more convenient for parents when they're dropping and picking up. So I'm just making that plea for the community, that at some point, the community gets what they get. And school is important, but the other part of what's available is also important for the community to use too.
So Steve, if I could just finish my thought.
Sure.
You know, it's a laudable goal to build a field. We are site constrained. We have tried everything we can to fit an amazing school on the site in a community that deserves a school. All of the concerns that the selectmen and others have voiced about pushing the field pushing the school further south still exist, regardless of whether the goal is to build a field or to build a school. If we're suddenly going to say that it's appropriate to shift things back, I'm not sure why option one then failed. So, as much as I support a field, we really do need to recognize that we are constrained by the space, and we need to use that space to the best of the ability. So I fully support Taisu Kim working with Joe and looking at the space that is available and finding the best way to utilize that space.
Before Friday, can you contact Parks and Rec and discuss the concept that you had presented on that multi-purpose field, just so that we can have that information to discuss it.
I can do that, but understand that any cost of improvements to that, even if it's just reorienting the baseball diamond, is not.
Understood. I think the concept though is, you pick a design, you drive forward with the design, and if for some reason you had the ability to make it better on both ways,
sure.
you shouldn't just go with blinders on if there are shortcomings or areas to make it better. And I think that's the general concept, and talking with Bill. Fair enough?
I think you're kind of putting it, I think what you're doing is, you know, and I understand the need to move forward, but at the bottom line is that, you know, I think at this point, you know, between now and Friday, that's not gonna be a constructive conversation. That's gonna be up here at some conceptual level, and with some thought, you know, we could even, you know, some of my people even made some in-house suggestions that we could look at the flow of that driveway road that's been there and a few other things. I mean, we've been producing some information for quite some time, but it just never circled to this group yet. And at the end of the day, Friday's really not gonna work. I mean, I don't see it as having some conceptual discussion that says, you know, this is what we want. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
We're gonna move on. Mike?
Yeah. I just want to make one point, and that is that is New Lebanon Field. The original New Lebanon School was where the library was. My uncle attended there, said every day they were out on that field for gym. So it is part of the school. It's not a village green, it's the fabric of the community, absolutely, but it is part of that school. And in part of the fabric of the community, that is an economic vital engine for our community in the summer months for a lot of those businesses. So if we have an opportunity at some point here to, whether it's, I don't know about regulation or just multi-use, but improving upon that, I think that as a town, we should follow through with looking into that. And more importantly, as a building committee, part of New Lebanon School, which the field is, needs to be definitely looked at to make sure that it's improved upon for the students. So that's all I have.
All right, we're moving on. Owner's rep, Joe, thank you for attending. Owner's rep and commissioning agent, the subcommittee has met via email and the like. That process is moving along, but suffice it to say that, again, we're looking at pushing out contracts.
We're waiting to hear back from legal.
Right. Timeline, you have it. We'll continue to monitor it. Jay, with your group. Communication subcommittee, there's nothing really that needs to be updated. We have our quarterly reports, always do, and I'm sure the next one is due in a couple months, but we should know this. We should, to the extent you're part of any subgroup, Tony, RTM, the like, if you can update them on and get as many people knowledgeable about our Friday meeting, it's always helpful. PTAs, Fire Neighborhood Association, any other interested group, not want to shortchange anybody here. Let them know of our Friday morning meeting. It'll be in this room, and that agenda will go out. Any questions on that?
Will we have the electronic link at least to be able to send?
Yeah, we'll get
that on the website.
We'll get that up on the website. Is there a motion to approve the January 6th meeting minutes?
I made edits to,
Yeah.
mostly typed. There were a few sentences which I provided in writing. Do you need me to read them?
If you have them.
Yeah, we'll get on to them. I have a question about the amendments. I've been putting them in the minutes of the meeting, but do you need the minute? No, you just need, yeah, I thought so.
As amended.
Yeah, as amended.
I'm sorry to reference. Okay, so just apart from surname spellings, under 2A, line 2, it was new options within the area of the expanded site approved by the selectmen at their December, what date that is, the December meeting, 16th Board of Selectmen meeting. Thank you. And then in 2C, at the end of the sentence, new designs add within the confines of the existing school field parcel. And then I had one correction on 2E. I understood the acoustic consultant and the traffic engineer to have started their work, not the site engineer.
Correct.
So that was the correction from traffic to,
No,
from site,
she's saying site.
from site to traffic. It wasn't a site engineer, it was for traffic. It was acoustic consultant and traffic.
There are two consultants, one for acoustics, the other is the traffic consultant.
Traffic, so that's perfect. And 3D, after the word, the CA being an independent contractor, engaged, I was gonna add, engaged directly by the building committee. And that's it.
Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended? So moved by Peter, second by Dean. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, against. Thank you. Next steps, we'll have our meeting on Friday morning and then again on Wednesday evening at this point. Again, if for some reason that needs to change, the meeting notice will go out, but the agenda will be posted. If you have additional questions, the sooner the better to Tai Soo Kim. I'd ask that you send them through me, and then I will get them over to Richard.
I'm sorry, did we change the meeting on Wednesday to the morning?
No, not yet. We have a touch Wednesday.
Do you want me to work with Tyson Kim to get the document up and posted?
Whatever you say.
Yeah, I have it. I'll send it.
Okay.
I'll send it along. Anything else? Very good. We are adjourned.